Gregg Jarrett is with us, Fox News legal analyst, author of the #1 bestseller, The Russian Hoax. Also, David Schoen is with us, criminal defense and civil liberties attorney. You know, you wrote me a nasty email and you said, I know more about Andrew Weissman and Jeannie Ray than anybody else, because yesterday one of the stories was that Mueller allowed his pit bull, Andrew Weissman, to pick the team of Democratic donors. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know. Mr. Schoen.
I certainly didn't intend for it to be a nasty email.
No, I'm just teasing you. This is a little bit of hyperbole there.
Yeah, no, listen, Weissman is what he is. We've discussed it many times, but, I've had cases with Weissman, Greg Andres, with Jeannie Rhee. I mean, Mueller knew what he was doing when he picked this team. This was a team of financial and other supporters of Hillary Clinton and anti-Trump. And what Mr. Nadler ought to finally accept is if that team with that agenda found no collusion, whatever collusion means, didn't find sufficient evidence for obstruction of justice, it's time to move on. Now, they put in there all their politically charged facts and all that sort of thing, and that's why, this Mr. Nadler's committee wants to have this cathartic reading out loud of the report. But this has become an absurdity now. It's time to move on with policy, and it's time, I suppose, for this investigation to get fully underway. By Mr.
Well, I think it has, and I'm getting some rumblings, I can't confirm it, that it looks like Horowitz may be done, that it's going to be devastating. Obviously, he's had to brief the Attorney General. The Attorney General was very clear the Mueller issue's dead, but Hillary's investigation, how it was handled, the dossier, the FISA warrants, the abuse of power by high-ranking officials is real. That game is on, and we see it with Mr. Durham.
Yeah, John Durham was the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, specially appointed by the Attorney General to investigate this, has the power and the skills to get to the bottom of all of the corrupt acts at the FBI and the Department of Justice. Now, the Inspector General has been doing a lot of the legwork over the course of the last year and a half, coming up with some of the evidence, but you need, Sean, a U.S. Attorney to force people who are no longer employed by the government to talk. And, Durham has the authority to present incriminating evidence to grand jury to force people to testify for potential indictments. So you're talking about people who have left the FBI like Comey and McCabe and Strzok and Lisa Page. But I think he's also zeroing in on people like Bruce Orr, James Baker, and of course Christopher Steele, who composed the phony dossier that was all nothing but, 17 memos of lies. And Glenn Simpson, who has taken the fifth, the founder of Fusion GPS, who was funding the whole thing and egging Steele on and leaking it to the media. And then, of course, you've got Brennan and Clapper. These guys are all now turning on each other. There was a scheme afoot. Comey and Brennan and Clapper, they were going to use this phony dossier, slip it in to the intelligence community assessment, and then use that as an excuse for Comey to go to Trump and debrief him about the dossier, which was all a pretext for then leaking it by Clapper to the media to damage the president. And all three of these guys, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, they were all eager participants. This was their scheme. It was corrupt, and now they're getting caught because it's all unraveling.
I think it's all going in the same way, but we're going to get the five buckets that we always talk about. We're going to get the FISA applications. We're going to get the 302s. We're going to get the Gang of Eight. We're going to get the exculpatory information apparently that was withheld. And we're going to get apparently the email connection with the FBI admitting a lot of wrongdoing. What else are we going to get? I'll ask you first, Greg, then I'll ask David.
Well, I think among those documents, you will see that the FBI and the DOJ knew that this was an unverified, phony document written by a guy who lied, who was virulently biased, and it was paid for by the Clinton campaign and the Democrats. They knew all of this. They knew that Carter Page was not a spy, even though they told the FISA court, literally, this is a Russian agent. Those are their words in the FISA application, and they knew that was a lie. They didn't care. They were going to bring down Trump. They were going to spy and surveil. And God bless the Attorney General, who likes to use plain language that all Americans can understand. You can listen all you want to the excuses being offered by people like Christopher Wray and James Comey and so forth. That was spying. And, whether it's done with a legal predicate or not, the Attorney General will get to the bottom of it.
What is your take on that part of it? And do you see the indictments that we think are warranted here, David Schoen? David, where'd you go? I guess we lost David. Well, the thing that I know everybody wants more than anything is they want to know when we get the smoking guns that blow them out of the water. Like James Comey's an interesting guy. He never shuts up, which I think is just legally it's dumb.
Yeah, stupid.
And he's contradicted himself. But even on the Warren issue, if the bulk of information, as the Nunes-Grassley-Graham memo say, is the dirty Russian dossier paid for by Hillary, and he signs that it's verified in the warrant October 2016, tells Trump it's not verified but salacious in 2017, and now all the FBI guys are saying, holy crap, is he going J. Edgar Hoover on us? And is he blackmailing the president?
I'll tell you what Comey's going to do. When he's up against the wall and the evidence is incriminating against him, he does one or two things. He either claims he can't remember anything except his name and date of birth, because that's what he did in the private sessions under testimony with Congress. Or he'll just make stuff up. He will lie, and you'll find that in the Inspector General's report when his excuse for not indicting Hillary Clinton was, well, the congressional intent of that statute required intent. And of course, I went down to Washington, D.C. and pulled the congressional recordings, and it was just the opposite. They specifically wrote a new provision eliminating intent. So Comey was just lying and making it up. So he'll either lie or suddenly he will have amnesia and can't remember everything or anything. And he'll say, I may have affixed my signature to that, but I was relying on other people.
What is your take on that part, David?
Well, I think he's 100% right. I mean, Comey has shown himself to believe that he's above the law. What I want to see happen here is, through Mr. Durham, a witness, a live witness come forward, whether motivated by fear of prosecution or conscience. Whatever it is, I want that witness to tell the truth, because I hate to be a Johnny One Note, I don't think you've even scratched the surface on what people like Andrew Weissman did that was wrong. This is dangerous. Remember, you had an attempted coup at the Justice Department. You have a cadre of people who felt they were above the law, doing God's work in getting Donald Trump out of office. That's a very, very constitutionally dangerous situation. We need witnesses here on top of the documents.
I got to take a quick break. We'll come back.
Radio, now at 107.5 FM and 580 AM.
David Schoen. So we're going to now, is there a possibility that the Inspector General report becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back? David.
Yeah, there's a chance of that. Listen, Michael Horowitz is an honest guy, if nothing else. I've had him as a special prosecutor in a corruption case in the Southern District of New York. He was hard-hitting. He slammed the agents when they were crooked. I think he's, been held back a little bit in the report that he issued earlier now. And he certainly has long-standing relationships with some of these people. But yes, there's a possibility that he could really finally pull the curtain back on the misconduct here.
Unbelievable. Right.
I think there have been several key individuals who have come to Michael Horowitz and spilled the beans. And I'm hearing the same thing, Sean, that you're hearing, that this report by Horowitz will be devastating, and I think it will lead to legal action by the Department of Justice against people.
But how could it not? Now, let's just think about this for a minute. If they used the dirty political dossier that was unverified as the means of spying on an opposition party candidate in an election year,
right?
And they were warned multiple times by multiple people that she paid for it, Steele hated Trump. It's not verified, but did it anyway. Isn't that premeditated
Totally.
fraud on a court?
Oh, it is. And as I identify in my book, The Russia Hoax, it's 6 different felonies, 6 of them. But, here's what their excuse is going to be. All the people who signed off on it, from, Sally Yates to James Comey, who signed 3 of them, Rod Rosenstein, they're going to say, well, we relied on the work that was done putting the FISA application together. We relied on all these other people, and they didn't properly communicate all of this stuff that we should have told the court. So they're going to blame others.
But Rod Rosenstein said, you're a career law enforcement official.
Yeah, but he's also made some other comments suggesting that he didn't actually read the document. He didn't dig into the research.
Is that going to work, that they relied on other people's accounts of the dossier?
Well, it shouldn't work, but in the end, that's their only mea culpa.
Do we go back to Hillary? Does she get in trouble?
For paying a foreign national for information is a violation of the Federal Campaign Election Act.
What is the penalty? Is that a felony?
It's the $168,000 she paid for that dossier makes it a thing of value. And in egregious cases, it can be a crime because it was willful.
She gets away with the emails. She gets away with the obstruction.
But she might not get away with the dossier.
What about the Uranium One deal?
Hard to know.
All right. Thank you both.